You're listening to Reignite, a podcast about gray morality. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And we like to welcome back our friend and fellow podcaster, Colin Parker. Fanfare, applause.
Well, hello, everyone. Hi. Hey. What's up?
You are our second returning season 1 guest.
Oh.
Who, I forget, do you remember, MJ, what episode Colin was on? Because I don't, from season 1. And, you know, a talented and professional podcaster would have looked that up already instead of stalling now. So MJ could possibly look it up.
It's okay because I also went, oh, wait, what episode was I on? I got to remember this point because it has been so long since then.
It's been a while.
Let's see.
The amount of time that's passed, it's, you know, time is a river. Or like
it was episode 14 of season 1. Give us Andromeda 2, you cowards.
That's
right.
Yes. That is
I
right.
still stand by that.
I definitely knew that off the top of my head and did not allow Matt to keep talking so I could find out.
Yeah, we both know MJ would never let me talk endlessly because that would be a nightmare.
Yeah, it would be just torture for our poor listeners.
Well, Colin, even though you went into this a little bit last time, why don't you just give a briefer summation of the kinds of things you do outside of being a guest on our podcast?
Sure. In a way, it's kind of expanded, or at least like for lack of a better term, like the base of operations has. So I am, okay, I'll start with how we all know each other. So I am the admin for the Mimbim Bambino Podcasters Facebook group, which is a great place to be if you are a podcaster who is also a fan of any McElroy related content. There's a little over 800 people there, and during the first week that we started, just barely over 2 years ago, we had like 100 people, so we've grown pretty far in those 2 years. While I was in that group, I met quite a few wonderful people, including yourselves. But some of the people that I met, I ended up creating a podcast network. And some of them were like, hey, what if we joined you? And I was like, all right, sure, sounds good. And so that's how the Scavengers Network got started. That is a very, very brief, condensed version of it because that's definitely not how it went, but that's how I can get about, 4 or 5 months worth of content into one sentence. So I do the Scavengers Network. I am the main producer on the show Myth Takes, which is a actual play podcast using the game Monster of the Week. I'm on a Podalesma, which is another actual play show using a game called Occult, which has no DM. So basically everyone has to take turns sort of leading the conversation, and you just sort of have to have faith in the other people in the room with you. So there's no outline. We're just sort of creating the mystery as we go. That show's coming back very soon. I'm on Journey Under 30, which is a roadmap drawn in Discovery. It's about being under the age of 30 and trying to make your mark on the world, and also about me trying to make it onto the Forbes 30 Under 30. If I don't make it this month, then that means I've got a year, and that's about it. And so that's basically everything that I do. I'm the head of that network and everything like that. But basically, I just do nothing but podcasts these days, and of course, play Mass Effect video games.
That is a relatable statement, if I've ever heard one.
Word.
Yeah, I felt like I was in good company here with that.
Yeah, a little bit. Look, I was doing too many podcasts before MJ started doing too many podcasts. Why she would follow in my footsteps is beyond me, but here we are.
It's a slippery slope,
it's the depression.
I mean, you're not wrong.
True.
You're not wrong.
Yeah, definitely not wrong.
My interview series was born out of a depressing time. So, yes, you are completely accurately correct. Well, Colin, it's great to have you back. We had a blast with you the last time you were on the show. And we're going to get into a little more details about why you picked this mission. But first, I suppose, MJ, you should summarize what we're doing here today.
You want a summary? I'll give you a summary. Shepard and Garrus head over to the Citadel to try and track down Sidonis, the Turian who betrayed the entire Archangel team on Omega. To do so, they must first find Fade, a criminal who excels at making people disappear as well as avoiding C-Sec entirely. Suspicious. Garrus gets more intense the closer they get, and Shepard must decide whether to let Garrus take the shot or if there's another way.
That was very enthusiastic.
Please be impressed with me.
I am
very
impressed
good.
with you. I'm also impressed that I didn't have to edit out any flubs. Not that you ever make mistakes. What? Mistakes?
Look you.
Yeah, this mission, it's funny. Just briefly before we get into the meat of it, and talk about some other things. I continuing along my critical path of forgetting things about this game. I'd forgotten that there were multiple stages to this. I vaguely remember what the mission was, but again, it's been so long since I played the second game specifically that I'd forgotten that there were multiple steps. And a lot of the missions before this, it was kind of like show up to a place, do one thing, and you're done. Whereas this, there are multiple goals, still about the same length, but multiple goals, which I'd completely forgotten.
Honestly, I think the next couple of missions break down the same way, just like the last mission we did, the Ardat Yakshi. Mm-hmm. The next mission we're doing is Sins of the Father, which is Thane's loyalty mission, which also has a lot of kind of steps to it and places to go and things to investigate. And I think after that is Tally's mission, where we do the same thing, where we have a lot of kind of breaks in the cutscenes.
Yeah, it's
I do wonder if some of that has to do with disc-based limited ability. Wow, what the hell am I trying to say? Limitability. What is the word I'm trying to say? I think yes. There we go.
Are you trying to say?
Wow, I was like, limitability is not a word, Colin. Yeah, the Thanksgiving turkey is still like in my system, I think. No, but I really do think that there is something to be said about like the whole. There were some missions that really were just sort of all in one room. And I feel like that was maybe a thing of, oh crap, we spent a lot of disk space making people run back and forth and putting like extra data in these rooms. So can we just, condense everything from this mission into one space, and we'll give some of the more seasoned people like Garrus like a little bit more of a wide variety of mission status. So I don't know how else to say that, but because you do even in this game have multiple discs, if I'm not mistaken.
Mm-hmm. There are two.
Yep.
Yeah. So even then they were they were still working with two, and it's still, we were pretty limited with kind of early disc games.
Yeah.
Yeah, for sure.
So Colin, we have an important question.
Of course.
Why does this mission matter?
I think it matters for a couple different reasons. The first one being that I think that there is a lot to be said about games that have choices in them, where, not only do you make kind of good or bad decisions, but when you have a companion who also kind of starts to follow you on that path. I think that Mass Effect, actually, interestingly enough, I think it's all like sci-fi stuff, but for me, the two biggest contenders in this are Mass Effect and also Star Wars Knights of the Old Republic. Your choices start to reflect upon your followers or your friends or companions, whatever you want to call them, and they kind of start to, I think, change the way that they do things as well. And I think that, you could probably play a game where you are a Paragon and you make Garrus do all the renegade stuff, possibly. But, at the same time, those two things don't really match up. I think that if you're going to do one, you're probably going to have the other one follow. And I think it's important because you do see that, Shepard's way does reflect on his companions. And I think that's sort of part of what the loyalty missions are sort of all based about. Because basically every loyalty mission has two options. Not all of them, but I think most of them do. Or at least they've always felt that way to me, where it always feels like, all right, well, we could, take someone out, or we could find another way to, get our revenge, but without stooping to their level. Or, hey, in a way, it's also like the idea of like Legion and Tali. It's like, yes, I understand there's all this like complicated history, but why would we also kill Legion and just continue it? So, I think that's sort of where these missions get really interesting for me and like why they are so important. Because I think it also helps you see the effect on the universe that just one person has. And that's not just like necessarily in a video game. There's the whole, pay it forward sort of idea of life. And I think that that is sort of what you can give real life friends as well as Garrus' friend, and give him like this idea of, hey, you can do this, but also be better. And also it's important because it's a Garrus mission, and like everyone knows that Garrus missions are always important.
This is true. That's very true.
I mean, he is the internet's space Batman boyfriend, so.
I mean, basically, yeah.
All right. Well, before we dive into the play-by-play of the mission, let's me and MJ discuss our check-ins as we often do. I assume you wrote down what Joker said, as you always do.
I wrote down the first half of it. I was afraid you'd dump Samara for some crazy soul sucker with a death fetish, all sexy and lethe, and I'm gonna stop talking.
Yeah. Joker continuing to show that, while we love him, sometimes he is a terrible human. He's a terrible being in general.
It's like they let Seth Green just like be him.
Yeah.
Yeah, to a degree.
That's
for
probably what happened.
It's like, hey, we won't give you any lines. You just play in the space. And he's like, all right, I might not be great about things. They're like, it's fine.
The script reads whatever Seth Green says.
Pretty much.
I wouldn't doubt it for sure in the third game.
Yeah, I'm sure he probably just like ad-libs for a long time to go. We actually stopped recording like an hour ago, but he's having fun.
I'm really interested when we talk about the next check-in with Morden, what he said to you, because to me, it reflected the person I'm pursuing a relationship with. And you're not at that point yet.
So Morden says to me, so I noticed that you come by a lot, and I've had people of other species interested in me before, and I'm just not interested. And I was just like, whoa. Buddy, first of all, I visit all of my friends equally. Second of all, you should be so lucky. And my response was actually like, thanks for letting me down gently. Because that was also my real world response.
Yeah.
And after that, he says, if I intended to try human, I would try you. And I was just like, that's not helping.
No. Morden, please stop.
That's not a helpful statement to me.
That's some performative bullshit right there.
Yeah, my conversation with Morden, as I've begun to pursue a relationship with Jack, was all about how he's noticed that I there's potential for me to be sexually active on the ship, and how biotics can be quite damaging, and people could get hurt. But he had and my shepherd's response is, "You're joking, right?" Like he's like, "You're just messing with me, right, Morden? And this is just a joke." And he's like, "How dare you?" Patient doctor confidentiality I take with the utmost importance and seriousness. Like, he was flabbergasted that I would call him on that, and then was like suggesting biotic dampeners and interesting uses of miniature mass effect fields. I'm misquoting a little bit.
Like sci-fi condoms, but like not even for your bits, but for your abilities.
Right, because, he's afraid that Jack may break me in half in the process, even though I, too, am a biotic.
She could.
Which was fascinating.
That's fine. I would welcome that.
So that what it's, and this conversation does happen no matter who you romance, but I guess I got it earlier because I've pursued a relationship with Jack earlier.
Yeah,
because it does seem like I've hit a point. Yeah, I've hit a point with her now, so I guess I'll go into my check-in with Jack, and then we'll do the rest. When I go down to talk to Jack, like, now it's, like, playful laughter when we talk, and, like, she's still trying to be a hard ass, but, like, you can see that she's smiling through it, and tells me that I'm really strange, and she's very into it. It's just, it's actually quite adorable. It's fun, interesting, and endearing to watch someone slowly come out of their shell and still try to be a hard ass and be flabbergasted and be flustered and try and flirt back. It's just, it's a fun exchange to have. And I really am quite fond of Jack because it's opened up her character in a way that I've never experienced before in the game because I've never pursued this relationship before.
She still tells me to go away.
Yeah, she's mad. She's mad at you.
She's not mad at me. She's just done with me.
Well, that's Miranda. Every time I still go try and check in with Miranda, and she goes, I try to talk to her, and she's like, let's talk later. I'm like, oh, boy. Okay. Fine. I see it.
Yeah, they're done.
Yeah.
Did you have that second conversation with Morden?
Which, no, I didn't talk to him again after that conversation.
Okay.
What was the second conversation?
He got a call from his nephew. You'll get it next time. We'll talk about it next time.
Okay. Yeah, no, I assume I only get one conversation per check-in. I know that's not the case, but I forget. So let's move on to Kasumi, who always has fun things to say.
Yeah, Kasumi, it's a short one. I just wanted to comment on how Samara told her what happened with Morinth. And Kasumi says, like, she tries to play tough, but I think she really could not have done this without you by her side. And she's not saying that Samara was incapable of doing it. She's saying that she needed the companionship. She needed someone to back her.
Yeah.
And I think it's really interesting that Samara would talk to Kasumi of all people.
Why is that?
I just feel like Samara wouldn't necessarily talk to anyone about her issues with her daughter, aside from Shepard, who she asked for help with, to talk about the experience and how she was really grateful for Shepard's help. To Kasumi speaks to an unseen friendship there.
Yeah,
I think, sure. I gotta say, I think part of that could be one of two things. Like, I think that, even if she is also kind of trying to play hard ass in a way, but like in a different way than Jack would be, after going through a kind of rough time, sometimes if someone is just like, hey, you seem upset, like, is everything okay? You kind of let your guard down sometimes to actually talk it out with, like, the first person who actually takes the time to ask. But also, Kasumi, she's a downloadable character, if I'm not mistaken. Mm-hmm. It's been a while.
Yes.
Yeah,
correct.
That's okay. That's what I thought. Yeah, so I wonder if also part of that is just because they need to flesh out the idea that these downloadable characters, like, also are actually there and not just, like, you downloaded them and now they stand in a corner. Like, I think maybe it's also to, like, give them some sort of characterization. But, like, I do like the idea of the silent friendship because, in a way, once again, that's also, like, the effect that you have on people. Like, you're bringing all these people who are very different from each other and putting them together on a ship. It's like they're going to be in outer space in pretty close quarters for a while. Like, you at some point you're going to have to say something at breakfast or whatever.
Well, and as you said many times on this podcast, it is completely unclear how much time is passing from mission to mission. So
that's a good point too. Yeah.
Yeah. I mean, what you say is true, but also, like, with Zaid, like, he doesn't do this. He doesn't have new stories to tell. But
that's true.
Kasumi does. She was also added after. Zaid came out right around release, whereas Kasumi came much later with other DLC. So they might have realized the shortcomings with Zaid and added more with Kasumi is possible.
Right.
I mean, it's hard to say.
Yeah, Zaid could have also been rushed because they knew they had to get him out and just were like, okay, well, we'll just take our time with this other person because we have the time, but Zaid has to be readily available, so here it is.
I mean, that's a whole other conversation about DLC being worked on while a game is being worked on. I've ranted about that on Fun and Games enough, but that's a story for another time. But it's good that you bring up Samara, MJ, because that was my next check-in, and I'm guessing yours as well. And
before we talk
really
about Samara...
oh, yeah.
Oh, no, I just wanted to bring back something that we've said in the past that I think is even more keenly felt here, is that I really wish Kelly would weigh in on the aftermath of these missions.
Yeah.
How weird is
a good
it
point.
that, like, she's supposed to be the person keeping track of everybody's psychological health and mental health, and she tells you that she looks at their psychological profiles and, gives you feedback when you recruit them, but now that you've done their loyalty mission and it plays out a certain way, she got nothing to say?
I would be interested to know if they recorded any lines for that, and once again, like, if it was like, well, disk space, gotta cut something. Or if they just were like, you've done the loyalty mission, like, they're loyal, who cares now, Which is kind of toxic, but, whatever.
Yeah. So
I mean, she's also a member of Cerberus. We don't know how much the elusive man is pulling strings. Like, I want to assume Kelly is genuine, and I do believe that she's genuine based on my experiences with her. But that said, we don't know if we don't know how deep that goes too, and that could be part of it.
I mean, she's like the cashier at the Chick-fil-A. You know what I mean? Like the Chick-fil-A as a company is like not great, but like the person who is like, not being rude to you, that is like genuinely like, oh, your card got declined or whatever, but like I'm just gonna, like, all you wanted was a small milkshake. Sure, I'm gonna just comp you this one. Like, hey, it's on me because like I see you here frequently or whatever, which is something that happened to me like years ago before I really knew how bad that company was. But like that person was genuine. Like they weren't trying to be like, they weren't like, oh, I'm just trying to get you back in here. Like they were like, hey, look, I've seen you multiple times. I know you probably just had a rough day. Just have the small milkshake. You know what I mean? That's how I feel like Kelly is.
Yeah.
Sure. Okay, why not?
That was a weird analogy, but my whole point was that, like, I think that someone can work for a company that's bad, but also still have good intentions, thinking that, like, well, they might not be great, but, like, they do serve a purpose and for me as well, so.
Yeah, no,
that was a better way of saying that.
Yeah, totally.
I could have done that without the milkshake, sorry.
It's fine.
I think milkshakes are always important. Please include them in all stories going forward.
Okay. Oh, crap. Hang on. I got to change my notes real quick. 1 second.
Shall we move on to Samara now?
Yeah, I just wanted to talk about Kelly, but yeah. So Samara says, I am a ruined vessel of sorrow and regret, and I just want to give her a big hug and be like, I'm sorry.
She's she feels very Shakespearean in this moments to me. And it's also because of the way she carries herself. It feels very old world, even though her world is not our world. But of course, writing influences that kind of stuff. But like, she is probably this in the previous conversation is the most she's ever been open, I think, with anybody, let alone just us. And you really feel it, like, especially when you ask her, like, because she talks about how proud she was of her, all the things that Morinth was able to accomplish and the kind of warrior she was. And you question her saying, isn't that a contradiction?
I didn't question her.
Oh, really?
Well, because I think it's bullshit to call her pride hypocritical.
I guess. Yeah.
So my opinion, the reason why I didn't choose this conversation path is because I don't think it's hypocritical to be proud of, like, the good things about Morinth, like her strength and her resilience and her desire to live. Like, those are things that you should be proud of instilling in a person. Like,
yeah,
Samara wasn't proud of Morinth's, like, lust for killing or just her outrageous personality. She was proud of the good things, and I get that. And she's also, like, heartbroken and disappointed because she couldn't salvage those good things.
Right.
Yeah. I mean, the good is what you have to focus on because you had to end things due to the bad. So it's like, all right, we already know where the bad stuff got us, but like, let's at least remember that there was some, like, well, obviously they're not human, but the humanity in them.
Right.
For sure. I think my shepherd playing it that way as myself and as my shepherd, I think its shortcomings as someone who's not been a parent, as someone who's not been a woman. And so, like, I think I did say that in earnest because I truly didn't understand, but of course I do now. Of course I do once Samara explains it to me, and even more so as we're talking about it now. But I think that reaction was more natural because I leaned into my ignorance to try and find more information, for better or worse,
That's valid.
It's just really interesting as a character who I feel like you get to know, but only so much. This is the most open she'll ever be with you. There are some more conversations after this, but for the most part, this is the most you get to know this person. Now we assume there are days and moments we don't see with Shepard and all of this crew continuing to bond. But some of these conversations are some of my favorites with Samara because you just get to see the complete person for the first time. And I think it's the first time she's ever shown the complete person to somebody.
Yeah, no, that makes sense, though. I mean, and also sometimes you kind of have to you kind of have to dig a little bit as well, like especially if you are trying to find like kind of all of what the game has to offer, you know what I mean? Because like sometimes, I mean, that's the thing. I've never actually done a Renegade run ever on this game because every time I say I'm going to, I just end up going, no, I don't like being mean. I have to be nice. And I think I said that on the last time I was here, but like,
yes.
That's what it comes down to. I just like the second I say one mean thing, especially to any of the companions, I'm like, I'm so sorry, you sweet baby boy, or you sweet baby girl, or, whatever. And then I'm like, I'm so sorry. Like, please let me make it up to you. But the thing is that, if in order to see all the different things that the game has actually created and recorded and put out there, like at some point you gotta, I'll have to actually go do this now, man. Now I have to make a commitment to myself to actually go be bad.
I mean, I've done it, but with the head down decision that I'm just going to choose the Renegade options for the sake of it.
Yeah.
That said, I mean, I do choose some Renegade actions, but mostly the snarky or badassery ones. We'll talk about that a little more later because there's one of those in this one, which MJ to this point has taken more of those than I have because some of them I felt were
I am
outrageous.
small and angry.
You are small and angry. Anything more to say about Samar? So we move on to our favorite lizard son.
When I die, it will not be in bed. That's it.
Wait, what? Sorry. Oh.
Samara says at the end of the conversation, when I die, it will not be in bed.
Yep.
That's
a good line. It's a good line. Yeah.
So good.
Yes.
Her writing is great. Let's jump over to Grunt.
Yep.
Yes. Who's so ridiculous.
Still hyperactive boy who still wants to smash heads and defeat our enemies.
So with Grunt, I take a strict renegade line with him because you can be like, I thought this was going to calm you down. I thought you were going to chill out. Or you could be like, yes, point that at the collectors. And I feel like I still ride the line Krogan,
of go ahead.
I feel like knowing the Krogan, why would you be anything less than Renegade? Because, you know what they're like. You know that this is kind of how he has to be in order to keep control of himself.
Yeah. I don't know. I just, it's tough because, I want him to be himself, but I also want my ship to not be, busted up.
He's not busting anything.
So it's like, hey, Grunt, kind of like you said, it's like, hey, go put that at the collectors, not at, my consoles, please.
My favorite is when you approach them, he's like, I have a list of enemies. And I'm like, how? You're 3 minutes old.
Yeah, but I love that. I think that's one of my favorite things about Grunt. Just Grunt being like, you know what? I've already grown enemies, and some of these I've never even met them. But you know what? I just don't like them.
So one of the things that I say to him, I'm pushing him towards yes, this rage is useful when you have someone to point it at and save it for our enemies. And Grunt goes, your enemies are my enemies. You give me purpose. And I'm just like, oh, my sweet baby boy. My sweet son, I will never let anything bad happen to you.
I love him. He's great.
He's so good.
He is my favorite character in this game, for sure. Maybe not in all of Mass Effect. That's a tough choice, but definitely in this game, Grunt is my
in this game
favorite character.
In this game, Grunt is definitely my sweet baby child.
My favorite thing that he says to close out is, lead well, Shepard. You have my respect.
Hell yeah.
That's all I want is my son's respect.
I mean, who doesn't, right?
I don't need anything else for Christmas.
All right. Well, I guess this is a good moment to dive into the meat of an eye for an eye, Garrus's mission. I guess we'll start by talking about who we took, as we always do. My logic was bring old friends, and so I brought Tali with me.
Hey, so did I.
Shocking. And I did get MJ's and my favorite conversation when I was in the Citadel.
Yes.
Where Garrus brings up, hey, remember when we used to hang out on elevators and talk all the time?
No.
And Tali is not having it. She's like, no. He's like, yeah, you used to tell me about the flotilla or your pilgrimage. And she's like,
this
shut
conversation is over.
I completely forgot about that, but the second, like you said, favorite conversation, I was like, wait a minute. They have a conversation about the elevators. And like, oh, yeah, that's so good.
And then Garrus keeps pushing it, and Natali's like, I have a shotgun.
I love it. And then Garrus just goes, maybe we'll talk later.
It's just so good. It's just so good.
My other favorite thing about the Citadel is this dude who is still trying to make a return 2 years later.
I know. What is that about?
It's a fun little like Easter egg of sorts.
Yeah. It definitely appears in 3, and it also gets an homage in Andromeda.
Oh my god. Really?
Oh
Yeah,
wow. I
it's
somehow
really
never
funny.
caught that one.
It happens on the Nexus.
All
I'll
right, well,
message
off
you.
air. Yeah, I was gonna say off air. Tell me so that way we don't ruin season 4.
But we jumped a little bit because when we get to the Citadel, Edie tells us that maybe we should talk to CSEC. And we find out that Bailey is looking for Fade.
Shocker. And can't bring him in, and thinks we'll get further than he will. That's kind of the motif with Bailey at this point.
Yeah, I wonder if Bailey might be a little lazy.
Could be. I think also he knows he can't fight the bureaucracy, but he also recognizes in Shepard maybe something that's within him that he doesn't have the power to wield, but he knows Shepard does.
I don't know. I used to love Bailey, and lately I kind of look at him through this lens of like, you're a shitty cop.
But like that's funny because like I've had that thought about him during my last 2 times playing through. Because I think the very first time I played the game, I was like, oh, Bailey, he's kind of a fun guy. I kind of like him. I feel like I could go to the to the space bar and have like a good ale with him or something. Like I feel like that would be fun. But then like as I went through it, I was like, okay, so what's happening here is we're in this sort of like perfect world, this perfect future for Earth. And, we get to a place where there are cops also in space. And yet, like, either they, like, we finally move away from, it's seemingly, shitty cops, which is great. But then they're shitty in the way that they just don't do their job. So it's like, man, can't I have some, like, thing where, like, it actually is a perfect world where, like, they're, like, actually good and good at what they do? Maybe. Is that too much to ask of anyone?
Yes, it is
but
too much to ask because we live in a dystopia.
I also realized that as I was saying it, I was like, but then if that's the case, like they would just be the ones out there with us and like backing us up. And then we'd have a whole bunch of cops involved in the whole story. And I definitely don't want that. So, it's like, it's good. It's better storytelling, but I don't know. At the same time, it's like incompetent police is also just like a trope, I feel like, frequently in stories where like the hero has to go prove themselves,
Yeah. I know I'm going to get real mad during our next mission because it involves the cops quite a bit.
Yeah.
I'm going to be very angry during it.
Yeah, Mass Effect 2, I feel like, had a lot of cop stuff. Very strange.
Yeah, more than 3, definitely.
For sure. 3 was more focused on the whole end of the world thing, but we'll get to that.
Right.
Yeah.
End of worlds,
sorry,
actually. Multiple worlds.
Season 3, spoilers, sorry.
So... after we talk to Bailey, he tells us that we want to go to the warehouse in the marketplace. And we pass the guy who is still trying to get a return 2 years later. We saw him in Mass Effect 1 fighting with the Turian salesperson, insisting that he purchased this Omni tool and that he wanted a refund. And the Turian was like, you did not buy that from me. And they get into a fight. And now he's having the same fight with the Solarian.
Yep. Just returning things forever.
And then we go into the warehouse where we meet Fade? Question mark?
Right. We meet a Volus and 2 Krogan, and we think it is Fade.
So here is the great thing about this scene. We have this small Volus who approaches us and wants to know what we're looking for. Like, which one of you wants to disappear? And Garrus delivers this really smooth, cool line. I'd rather see you make someone reappear. And I'm just like, dang, that's cool.
That's asking the magician to reveal his secrets, Garrus. By now, I'm sure Arrested Development has reached the Turians. I think you know.
But this little Volus then replies with, "That's not the service we provide."
I love
it
Volus.
It just sounds like a really tired customer service representative.
Right.
Yeah.
Like, "I'm sorry, sir, but we don't do that. You might need to speak to my manager."
Yeah.
Like, we've all said that line
I am the
before.
manager.
Yeah. Oh, yeah, that one too.
Oh, I am the manager. That's true. Anyway.
He's like, oh, I am the manager. That means I have to deal with this longer. Gross.
So when it becomes clear that we want to speak to Fade, the Volus yells at the Krogan to kill us, and we get a renegade trigger. Matt, did you take the renegade trigger?
I did, which you then immediately, you and Garrus put down the 2 Krogan before he can blink.
Yeah, I did that too, because why wouldn't I? I'm about to fight them anyway.
Right, yeah. And my logic was, I can't be bothered. Like, it's really an inconvenience at this point.
It just makes more sense for Shepard and Garrus to, like, be that quick. They've been doing this for a long time.
Mm-hmm.
They are the perfect team.
Yep. Best friends for life. Or 2 lives if you're Shepard.
But yeah, and like after this all goes down and you continue to threaten this Volus, and Garrus begins to get heightened in a way that we've not seen before. Like, he's gotten angry before, but not like this. Like, he's turning into Space Batman. Like, he's kind of growling in a way that he's never been before.
Yeah, he gets really intense. We also find out that Fade is actually Harkin, and
Right.
my Shepard has no idea who that is.
Yeah, and mine goes, God damn it, Harkin. Of course it's Harkin.
Because my Shepard did not talk to Harkin.
Oh, that's right. I forgot about that. You never talked to Harkin, whereas I did. That's right.
Yeah. Because in season 1, when we were given options of who to talk to get more information, Udina was like, "Go talk to Harkin." And Anderson was like, "No, fuck that guy. I hate him." So, of course, I did what Anderson said because he's my dad.
Right, he is your dad.
Yeah.
It's true.
Why would I listen to someone who is not my dad? Especially Udina. I hate him.
And so after you find out that it's Harkin, which my Shepard knows, and Garrus gets even more flustered, he's like, "Well, let's get out of here and let's go after Harkin. And if it turns out that this doesn't work out or we can't find it, we'll come back for you." And the Volus just teeters away, going, "Oh,
Good.
It's the best. It's the best." He's
I
just
love
like
it.
so dejected at that point.
It's the most Volus response.
It really is.
This mission had a lot of really good comedic timing.
Yeah, and I love that pause of good, like it's just perfect. It was lovely. I lost it. And the game does have moments like that, like the conversation between Tali and Garrus we were talking about before, and things like that.
Right.
And I appreciate those moments of levity, especially considering how intense things are starting to get.
The Volus tells us where to find Harkin. We go take a cab. We get there, and Harkin sees us, and he looks ready to shit his pants.
And literally goes, "Shepard, oh shit," and runs. I assume that he says the same to you, because I'm sure your reputation precedes you, even though you don't know him.
Right.
He just shouts my name and then says, "Shoot them," and runs away.
Yep, that's what he does. Runs away like a coward. And then we have combat.
He is a coward.
I am coming into my own, finally, as a Vanguard, especially with all the squishy robots. My favorite thing is to biotic charge into a group of robots and just watch parts fly. It's the best.
It's a very Magnus Burnside approach.
It's
taking
a
arms.
reference I sort of get. I sort of understand that reference.
Sorry, I have to remember sometimes that not everyone has listened to The Adventure Zone.
Yeah,
I understood it.
It's a mountain I am not quite ready to climb yet, but I am familiar with the characters from it because I have enough friends who are into it.
Hey, Colin, later I'll send you the songs I wrote about the Adventure Zone.
Ooh.
Ooh.
But yeah, we fight our way through the prefab foundry to go after Harkin. It's a lot of fighting robots and blue suns because, of course, a gang is involved, because every mission involves at least one of the gangs. It's just
for real. Maybe that's because there's so much cop stuff in this one. Well, also, I guess Cerberus is also like, acting above the law and stuff like that. And in a way, they're a gang as well. Yeah, I guess that makes sense.
True.
It's just gang wars, really. Mass Effect 2, the gang wars.
Gang wars.
Put that on the new box and print it. I don't know.
One thing that Garrus says while you're chasing after Harkin, I almost called him Hawkins. That's someone else. That's someone I'm friends with. Harkin's in here somewhere. I can smell him. And I'm just like, can you? Is it because
he shit his pants? Now? Like, you're Batman. Don't be Wolverine.
Just like, how can you smell him? Is this a weird Turian thing that I didn't know about?
You don't know. Maybe Turians have a really sensitive sense of smell.
It feels slightly racist. And, I don't know how else to say that. Like, the guy that would have, the kind of, slitted nose being like, oh, I look like I'm an animal, so I can suddenly smell this good. And it's like, I don't know about that one, y'all.
Yeah, no.
Let's take that one back and rethink that.
I don't think that was the intention. I think the intention was Garrus trying to say cool shit.
That's also true. He probably can't actually smell him. It's just the idea of I smell a rat.
Yeah.
But he's not a mobster, so.
Yeah, he keeps saying stuff like this, though. He also says, if he doesn't cooperate, I'll beat him within an inch of his life. And I'm like, buddy, calm down.
Hey, man, chill. I can't deal with you and Grunt being this edgy.
Your Anders aura is getting really intense right now.
Yeah, he mad. He real mad.
For the Dragon Age fans. Look, for a quick Dragon Age detour. In Dragon Age 2, Anders gets really, really intense really fast. And that is what this reminded me of. You have a moment with Anders where he says, I would drown us all in blood to protect you. And I am just like, Jesus. Dang. But this is how I feel about Garrus right now.
Yeah, I mean, I don't blame you. That does kind of seem to be same hat.
Right? Maybe this is why I like them both so much, despite the fact that Anders is a terrorist. Anyway.
Moving on. The fighting here is pretty rote. Bots and mercenaries. Not really a boss battle. The boss battle is two heavy mechs, and at this point, I'm so used to dispatching these things. They suck, but they're not impossible at this point. The cool thing was in the second section where the platforms are rising and falling. It's just a cooler way to interact with cover and stuff that we hadn't done yet. But it gets obnoxious pretty quick, I feel like.
I felt that this mission had a really good sense of urgency. Mm-hmm. There was this sense of I gotta get there. I gotta find him. And not I could just leisurely walk through this warehouse.
Right.
Yeah, no, I agree. I never felt like I could take my time. I always felt like I was rushing to the next thing.
You just want to get that closure for Garrus, you know what I mean?
Yeah. Oh, I definitely agree. Towards the end of the map, right before you catch up to Harkin, there's this weird, kind of shifting thing with the platforms. And Harkin's like, you'll never get in here, Garrus. And I'm just like, well, you're a fool.
Yeah, that sounds like classic, B-movie supervillain bullshit.
And then we get in, and somehow Garrus gets behind him.
Yeah, I don't... So, yeah, so you ambush him, you and Tali come in on one side, because we both had Tali, and then Garrus goes around the other way to stop him from escaping. But, where was that entrance? There was no other entrance.
How did you get there? And Garrus goes real hard.
Real hard, real fast. The escalation is insane at this point. It's clear that Garrus is in a dark place. You'd had a sense of it before, but now it's really apparent. He's throwing a lot of blows, which is not unfounded for Shepard to do as well when he needs information. But at one point, Garrus is choking him with his foot, not even really letting him speak until he starts to flail. And it's the most aggressive we've ever seen Garrus, even as a person who has fought outside the lines before.
And I thought it was really interesting that while Garrus is pressing down on Harkin's throat with his foot, it's not even a trigger for you to do this, but Shepard puts a hand on Garrus's shoulder to kind of be like, okay, that's enough.
Yeah. It's like, come on, buddy. We're in this together. I got you.
And usually that's kind of like a trigger moment where the Paragon action would be like telling him to back down. But the Paragon action comes later.
Yeah, I mean, I guess like he pulls him off because good or bad, it's like, well, if you want your information, he does have to be alive.
Yeah.
Yeah. So Garrus talks Harkin into setting up a meet with Sidonis. And there's a moment as we're about to leave where Garrus is like, I'm not going to kill you, but I am going to slow you down. And then there's a Paragon trigger. Matt, did you take it?
I did, and I kept him from shooting him.
Okay, I did too. My reason? He's fucking unarmed.
Right.
He is beaten.
And my reason was... You got him. Yeah, my reason was, I know Harkin. He's not going to get far. And that's pretty much what Shepard says. Like, he's not going to get far. He can't escape C-Sec now. So, like, it made no sense to injure him because he wasn't going anywhere.
Colin, do you have thoughts on this?
It was just cruel and unusual.
Oh, sorry. Yes. I mean, I do agree. And I do think that, like, another thing about it is that, like, at the end of the day, everything that has happened here is, like, he's been essentially, I mean, like, his whole steez has been shut down by their whole blowing up his spot. I mean, almost quite literally. So, like, the idea of, he's not going to go anywhere or not faster or whatever you want to say, like, I mean, it's pretty accurate. And in a way, it's just kind of keeping Garrus from going maybe further than he wants to. Because, like, even if Harkin is guilty and part of this, he's not the one who, like, literally does the main action of, like, the bad. You know what I mean? So it's like, yes, he needs to have consequences, but, like, he shouldn't be caught in the crosshairs just as Garrus's team got caught in the crosshairs of this feud, Maybe that's the Paragon in me, but I don't know.
And we're all just a bunch of Paragons here, so.
It doesn't get better. All of our guests are pretty much Paragons. Even that time we had a Renegade, there was a Paragon outcome.
That's true. But all right, so with this information now, we go to that meeting, and this is where we get one of the more, I felt, scarier conversations with Garrus. So you're in a cab flying over to the spot where Sidonis is going to be, so Garrus can perch up with his sniper rifle and take him out while you distract him. And this whole conversation is weighted by Shepard seeing the escalation and trying to check in with his friend or someone who's more than a friend, depending on how you're pursuing that. But either way, like, this is a moment for Shepard in the car to check in. I think it's interesting that your companion kind of just sits quietly in the back, like, as if what that conveys to me is that they're really put off by the situation. The fact that we both brought Tali makes it more so. Like, she was probably quiet because she didn't even know what to say at this point, and Shepard is trying to while Shepard is trying to navigate.
Yeah. In this scene, Garrus is challenging Shepard over the betrayal that he felt, and he implies that Shepard has never felt this kind of betrayal, and I just want to shake him.
Yeah.
Be like, have you met me? Do you know anything about me?
Yeah.
2 words, the council.
Yeah, I mean, and I think part of that is also, like, when you get really mad, or really upset about something, you kind of feel as if you're all alone in this feeling. And so I think that that's also, kind of like another, like, good indicator that Garrus is not exactly in his right mind. And,
exactly.
The other companion being in the back of the vehicle, I feel is kind of weird because they're not really a part of what happens next either. So I feel like it was just like we have this component. We need to show them going back with them at the very least so they don't so everyone doesn't go, what the hell happened to the other person? But at the same time, they are also there, as someone who is kind of being a supporting role. And so, like, it's not necessarily their moment or their time to interject, you know what I mean? Like, even if it is Tali, who has now been with Garrus longer than most of the other, new people have, even Tali would be like, well, like, if I have anything to say, it's probably going to best come from someone like Shepard and not me. Because as close as we are, it's like, Shepard's words carry more weight as someone who is like quite literally in charge of your, crew, and sort of like the leader, even though they are all friends, usually there is still sort of like a leader within that group, that kind of keeps everyone together and keeps everyone on the straight and narrow. Or if you're bad, maybe you're taking them down a bad path. But I think that like, that's just the thing of like, they can't necessarily add anything to that conversation because it's just not their place.
I also feel that rings doubly true for someone with Tally's background, where she grew up on the flotilla where the captain's word is law.
Yeah.
Good point.
That's true. Yeah.
It's a really good point.
And so the conversation ultimately is an exploration of you trying to reach your friend, but ultimately the mission still progresses. Garrus won't hear it. Garrus has one purpose here, and it's to get revenge, and nothing you say deters that.
Though it is possible for you to just be like, okay.
Yeah.
Let's do it.
Just agree the whole way. Yeah.
I'm ready.
Which I didn't do. I was fighting against it.
Yeah. I fought him on this too. I wasn't sure which way I was going to fall because on the one hand, I hate anyone that put someone I care about through this much emotional pain. But at the same time, like my shepherd has also been through quite a bit of shit. And I think the one thing that prevails no matter how angry my shepherd gets is I won't take that anger out on someone who is unarmed, someone who is innocent, someone who just happens to be between me and my target. Sidonus may not be innocent entirely, but we're not gonna know for sure until we talk to him. Maybe he was being blackmailed. Maybe he had family that was in danger. Like, there could be any reason why this happened, or it could just be that he's a terrible person. It's possible, but we can't know that.
Right. And, I also think that, like, if you are going, like, the Paragon route, I also think that there's something to be said about, like, kind of like being the Batman to a Robin in this situation, about being like, we don't use guns, even though obviously they do use guns in this situation. But I mean, like, it's that thing of like passing along the idea of like, we go high when they go low sort of situation.
Yeah.
And you're trying to, even though Garrus is like your peer, you are sort of being a dad in this moment and being like, I'm trying to pass some wisdom down along to you, my scaly son.
Also, depending on how you handled Dr. Salion in game 1, that could impact this conversation too.
Right, which I didn't do, so it didn't come up.
Oh, you never did that one?
Yeah, I didn't do that one. We talked about it.
I did it, and it didn't come up because, like, my stance didn't change.
Right.
But if you had encouraged Garrus to kill Dr. Salion and then prevented him from killing Sidonus, he does bring it up, and he's like, why?
Yeah.
You taught me to be this way.
I learned it from watching you.
Yeah. Yeah, exactly. Same hat.
Yeah.
But what's interesting for me with this conversation is as I'm having it, though, my shepherd is now conflicted. I know that you at this point, it sounds like MJ feels very strongly like maybe we shouldn't probably do this to Sidonus, not this way anyway. Whereas my shepherd, I don't know. I'm conflicted now. Garrus's rage and injustice and thirst for justice has clouded my judgment. Like I didn't know after that conversation. I was like, well, now we're going to go to the thing. What the hell am I going to do? And what's really interesting about the choice that we're about to make is it is not Paragon or Renegade. It's one of those major choices that doesn't have a color. It's just you can either choose to warn Sidonus or you can choose to get out of the way and let Garrus take the shot.
Yeah.
And so for me, the first thing I do is I pick the option to get out of the way and let him take the shot, and that that has you have a conversation with Sidonus. Like you're kind of stringing him along while Garrus is setting up his shot. When I got to the second choice, because they give you a second chance to pick one or the other, I really didn't know what to do in that moment. before I tell you what I chose, MJ, was this really easy for you? Did you just try and warn Sedonis from the get-go?
Yeah. Because my gut said that we cannot... Once he's dead, he is dead.
Right.
So
yeah,
I'm going to take every opportunity I can to find something redeemable. And if he turns out to be irredeemable, okay. Fine.
And so when you make that choice, remind me what happens.
So Garrus gets mad at you and tells you if he moves, I'm taking the shot. Sedonis, upon hearing you say Garrus's name, tries to walk away, but you pull him back and you say, I am the only thing between you and a hole in the head. And Sedonis starts telling you why he did what he did, which was he was being threatened. It was his life or theirs, and he wasn't strong enough to make it his own life. And he is haunted by the decision. He wakes up with sweats every night, and he feels sick, and he cannot live a full life because he is consumed by guilt and shame. And that sounds like a person who is suffering enough.
Right. I feel like that's such a powerful moment too. I mean, like, when every single time I play this game, like, that is always like one of the like easiest no-brainer options for me is like saving this dude's life, even though I do know now what he has to say. And so maybe part of that is pushing me to do that because I'm like, no, I know that he's conflicted or whatever. But there's this like weird thing about, to me at least, about being like, it's such a weird choice as a leader to just like stand aside and just let someone, take someone's life without, I don't know how to say this. Like, this is such a strange thing because obviously, as Shepard, I have used a sniper rifle to take out enemies from afar, especially on like insanity mode, because I'm like, well, I've got to take out as many as I can now so that I don't just get my ass handed to me 2 seconds into the fight. But there's something weird about like not wanting Garrus to do it without looking him in the eye if he's going to do it. I don't know how else to say that. Like, it's such a weird statement to make, but it feels very impersonal the way that he's doing it. I don't know. This whole mission is like it just really tugs at you the whole time. It's such a hard thing to get through, but like in a good way. I feel like it's a very good storytelling.
I agree with you. I think maybe if this final confrontation between Garrus and Sedonis turned out the way, say, Jacob's confrontation with his father did, face to face, I probably would have let Garrus do whatever he wanted.
I agree. Yeah.
Yeah. It's an uncomfortable situation to be in, and I couldn't tell you why, but in that moment, I stepped aside and I let Garrus take the shot, which is why I had MJ explain her part first.
Wow.
You let him
so
take
what
the
happens
shot?
when you step aside?
So what happens is you keep talking to him, and Sedonis goes, I don't have time for this. And Shepard steps aside and goes, don't worry, this won't take long. And Sedonis goes, what? And then next thing you know, he gets shot in the head and he's dead.
Oh my God.
Whoa.
I can't believe he did that.
And I couldn't either. And we set a standard for this playthrough and all playthroughs that, barring like game-breaking decisions, we're not doing do-overs. We have a suicide mission coming up at the end. People can die. That's not a secret or spoiler. And we are not doing do-overs. We're playing the game through. So I made that decision, instantly felt it in the pit of my stomach and regretted it, but it was done. And so I had my Shepard just play it even after that. But Garrus doesn't really want to talk after that. He's just like, let's just get out of here. I don't want to be here anymore. So I'm curious to see what the follow-up conversation is like once we're back on the ship, if we're just all broy and best buds again. But I as my Shepard, regretted the decision once I made it, but also had this thought of, well, at least it's done with, which I guarantee is what my Shepard is thinking too. Like, at the end of the day, he wants Garrus to be okay. This person did something terrible, and Shepard needs to move on. And I think that plays to some of the damage my Shepard's been through. Like, under certain pressures, I have absolutely cracked and made renegade decisions or done bad things because I don't always see what the right answer is. And here, it's very curious to me that not only does the game not guide you, like neither decision is Paragon or Renegade, even though clearly they are sort of one or the other, but like the game doesn't color it, so you definitely know. But also in that moment, like I said, having the conversation in the car, I was confused. I was unsure, and I made a decision in the moment. It happened, and then regretted it. And I think that speaks to the power of this game, and also speaks to how we're playing it for this podcast, because I don't know how that's going to affect my Shepard going forward. I don't know if that guilt's going to carry over. It really depends on how future conversations with Garrus go. It depends on how this continues to play out. Because on a mechanical meta level, the decision doesn't matter here. Like either way, it doesn't restrict you from getting anything else you need in the game, right? This is a moral decision that you make that will affect other parts of the game narratively, but will not hurt Shepard mechanically. And it's haunted me in a way that no other decision I've made, Paragon or Renegade, up until this point has. I've been thinking about it since I played it yesterday.
I have two questions about that.
Yeah. So my outcome is
hang on one second.
I think from your outcome.
I may have just lost my signal. Can you guys hear me?
When I meet back up with Garrus, he says, I know you want to talk about this, but I can't right now. Which, first of all, props to Garrus for being aware of his boundaries. Because that's a total valid thing to say to someone. Is
sure.
A thing happened, I am not in the mental space to talk about it right now. You know, self-care.
Well, this is interesting. Can you hear me?
He gets really emotional at one point when he's talking about his team and how his team deserves better. So while Garrus is talking about Sidonis and he's talking about his team, his voice gets really emotional, and I almost started crying listening to him talk about them. And Garrus also says, the lines between good and evil... No, Shepard says this, I'm sorry. The lines between good and evil blur when we look at people we know. And then Garrus says, Gray. I don't know what to do with Gray. And I think what Matt was saying about the game not guiding you and giving you the red or blue options to show you what's good and what's bad speaks to this final line of I don't know what to do with Gray.
Yeah.
It's really good writing.
And clearly my Shepard didn't either, because in that moment I naturally acted in a way I didn't honestly think I would, because I'm sure in previous playthroughs as a Paragon I've done what MJ did, but for whatever reason that I'm still having trouble articulating, I didn't this time. And Sidonis is dead, and Garrus just wants to move on and go back to the ship. And we didn't have a conversation. He just said, "I'm glad that's over with." Shepard says, "Me too." We get in the ship and we leave.
And so he does still obviously by doing that loyalty mission, and even by letting it go that way, he still is now loyal, right?
Yes, I believe so.
Okay. So here's a quick question, because I've actually never done this. Now, like with the very, very first time I played through the game, I somehow forgot to do one loyalty mission. And I think it was Zaid, I think, was who I accidentally got killed in like the final battle, and like he was the only person that didn't make it out. But the thing is that I've obviously, because I'm such a big fan of Garrus, I always do that mission, and I also always have Garrus with me in those final missions. So I've never really attempted to not take him. You know, if you haven't done your loyalty mission with Garrus, can Garrus still die?
Garrus can still die. Everybody can die.
Yeah, my understanding is it is possible for every single character to die. It is rare, but my understanding is everyone but Shepard has the possibility of dying on the
that's
final
false, my love.
What does that do to Mass Effect 3 then with those two, like with the two characters who return, right? Because it's only Tali and Garrus who return, I believe, right, to your team?
All characters. Return to your team.
To your team?
Yes,
They're just
I'm
not there,
sure
I
what
think.
it does. Yeah.
Huh.
I just want to point out Shepard can die in Mass Effect 2.
Wait, what?
You can have a playthrough of Mass Effect 2 where Shepard dies at the end.
Interesting. I didn't know that.
If everyone else dies, if every other person dies, you also die. Right?
Everyone has to die. Literally everyone has to die. There cannot be one person remaining.
Yep.
And if that happens, then can you not take that file into Mass Effect 3, I'm assuming?
No, you can't.
Huh.
Yeah.
Wow. That is interesting. That is such an interesting choice to, like, in a way, it's like a choose your own adventure book, but, like, you can't then go back and do anything. It's like not actually getting to an end and not being told that you can still make choices in a way. I don't know how else to say that, because I guess that would technically still be an end, but that's such an odd choice to make. I feel like there should be, well, I don't know. I'm also assuming that they didn't fully know the consequences or like what exactly this would all lead to necessarily, even back then. Like, obviously, I think they had a story written, but like the idea of like, well, I mean, everyone could die. It could also just be like, well, that's just sort of an Easter egg. You're gonna have to play it again now because you done fucked up. But
You played so bad.
yeah, hey, bud, you really messed up this file. It's a really bad file you got here, bud. We can't let you go forward. You killed everyone, including yourself. Way to go.
By the way, obviously, if you've not finished Mass Effect 2 while listening, these are spoilers we've been announcing since the beginning of the series. We will not tell you how anything goes down.
Right.
Ideally, to say the canon ending is not everyone dying.
Correct. Right.
It's just a possibility. We've always said
Correct.
that there were possibilities of people dying.
Yep, that is true. And so I guess with that, we put a pin in Eye for an Eye. Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm curious to see how this will affect me and my Shepard going forward, because I know I've done this option before, because I've done a full Renegade playthrough many times, for completionist's sake. I am curious to see how it affects me this time, being way more emotionally mature and more emotionally aware. But enough about that. And MJ, I believe you've brought us something grand for our fandom corner.
Well, before we get into Fandom Corner, I just want to make sure we're all done with our notes. Does anybody else have anything to say?
I don't think so. I mean, like, I feel like I could obviously, I mean, we have this discussion every time. Okay, I say every time. This is only my second time being here, but whatever. I'm going to pretend like I've been here a million times. I feel like, this is one of those topics or shows or games or whatever you want to mention it as, that I feel like I could talk about like forever and for ages. And so, like, in a way, it's like I have so much more to say, but at the same time, it's like I also think that we have wrapped this up in a really nice, neat bow. There are, I think, with some missions, including this one, I feel like there's always a lot of unanswered questions. And, I also sometimes wonder, like, how much of this kind of story, like, also doesn't necessarily ever come back, to be brought up, but, like, not necessarily in a bad way. Like, in life, there are a lot of loose threads, and I kind of wonder if, like, I don't want to reveal anything about Mass Effect 3, but, like, in Mass Effect 3, there's clearly some stuff happening with Shepard that, like, I wonder if, they don't address it even in this game on purpose, so that there is just more weight to add to what Shepard is going through in Mass Effect 3. But again, because those things never do get answered, it's like, it's just something that you're going to have to wonder about until they somehow make a Mass Effect 4, which, like, I don't know why they would or how they would, because that story definitely has come to a close. Or if they just were like, hey, here's our answer as a writer, we just decided to never bring it up again. Then you're like, all right, sure. But I do think that this has come to a very nice close. And I definitely am very curious to see where this goes for the run that has not ended with, like, keeping Sidonis alive. And, I'm also going to be curious to see how long that decision sticks, not only with Shepard, but with you. Like, not like in a sadistic way, but I mean, like, I'm going to be curious to see, like, how long into the gameplay, like, will you eventually forget that you did that? And, like, you mean, or will you keep, like, every now and then go, God, I really wish I hadn't done that. So I'll be interested to see how that affects the rest of your gameplay.
Yeah, that's legit. And I mean, I am too. I mean, for all I know, when we podcast next with our next guest, which we're going to talk about in a minute, I could forget by then. I mean, who knows? Considering how well I've remembered Mass Effect 2 through this playthrough, who knows? But that said, I feel like this decision will stick with me, at least for a little bit.
Okay, sorry. Now that we've put a bow on that, neat little bow, we can have other bows on the gift of Fandom Corner. That was my best transition.
Well played.
That was a good one. So for Fandom Corner, fear not, listener. I will not torment you with more of my singing. This time, I have fan art. So I did some digging.
These are funny. Or not funny, sorry. Fun is what I was trying to say.
So Amanda Cook, also known as Thunderhead Fred on Etsy, does some really cute fan art, which is very Shakarian heavy. Though there's a couple of really nice Morden shots.
Yeah, that's true. There are. I really like the Morden ones, actually.
Yeah, that Morden portrait.
Yeah, I like the young Morden. That one's like really nice.
Oh, young Morden, it is good. Also, there's one Andromeda reference in here. It's not even a spoiler. It's just a cute Andromeda thing. There's also a tribute to Nihilus, a sassy cheesecake tribute to Nihilus.
Yeah, I see that. It's really cheesecake.
Love it. It's wonderful.
Yeah, it's something in there.
Cargo Bay is really gorgeous.
Yeah, no, Cargo Bay is really nice. The thing that I felt bad because I was trying to say that everything is fun, but then I did see Strong Arm, and that's what made me say funny out loud because, like, I don't know why, but that one just does make me laugh. But, like, again, like, not like in a I'm making fun of this way. It's just, like, it is, everything in here is, like, either, like, sensual or, like, a nice little moment. And then, like, this is just, like, kind of, like, a little like, goof 'em up in a way. Even though there is some, like, sexual tension to it, it's also just very, like, again, like, there's something behind the whole, like, I'm going to arm wrestle you. Like, we're not in any kind of romantic mode here. I'm a wrestle you.
Yeah, I love it. So that is Thunderhead Fred on Etsy. Amanda Cook is the artist. She's really cool. She does other art, too. I was just looking specifically at the Mass Effect art. But there's also Good Omens. So there's a gorgeous Crowley portrait. Oh, she also did that portrait of Madam C. I didn't know that was her. I've seen this around the internet.
I like these. Yeah, I'm looking through the other stuff now. Sorry.
Oh, there's also a Varric one. Varric is my boy.
Oh, the black and white series stuff is really nice as well.
So check out Thunderhead Fred on Etsy and buy her art.
We'll also have a link in the show notes, as usual.
Oh, yeah. That was it for Fandom Corner.
All right. Well, now let's talk about what we're doing next. MJ, do you want to let the folks know what mission and who will be joining us?
I mean, I guess. So our next episode is Sins of the Father. That's Thane's loyalty mission. And our special guest will be Josh Kostler, someone that I'm friends with. And also, Matt is friends with his mom.
Right. I actually know his mom better than him, but, you know.
Which he finds weird all the time.
Yeah, he's a wee baby. He's a youngin'. It's fine. I want to take this moment to thank Colin for joining us again. Thank you, Colin, for being on the show.
Thank you for having me. It's always
Yay,
a blast
Colin.
to be here.
Why don't you do a brief little promo where folks can find you and Scavengers Network on the internet?
Sure. So this is so that before I even get into like my normal little promo stuff, I do want to give a small teaser so that I'm hoping that should I be welcomed back onto the Normandy for season 3, I would like to plant a little seed that by then I'm hoping to have most, if not all, of a sci-fi space TTRPG, tabletop role-playing game, if you're not familiar with the term, ready and done, that has been definitely heavily influenced by Mass Effect. I spent a good majority of November sort of playtesting a little bit of the stuff that I had created, and like I'm going to be continuing to hone that in, and I will actually be coming to both of you as well at some point to be like, hey, take a look through this and give me your thoughts, because like I'd like to bring other people on board, but I wanted to have like at least the outline done, so it seemed at least somewhat organized before I showed it to anybody, and not me going, I have this idea, thoughts, but yeah, no, it's great. It's very much in the it's like Powered by the Apocalypse for the most part, kind of style of gameplay, and it does it takes a little bit of homage from the D&D hack that you had sent me for Mass Effect after our last recording, which is actually also kind of fun. Like I took a few notes on like how they structured like weaponry and stuff like that, and kind of borrowed and tweaked. Like I didn't take it directly, but like there were some things that I liked and some things I didn't like. So, that's my way of getting us Andromeda 2 going, because even though they've said that they might potentially make another Mass Effect game, I'll believe it when I see it. I'm going to double down and say this is give us Andromeda 2, you cowards, 2, Electric Boogaloo. So that's the sequel to that. And then now for my actual self-promo. Like I said at the beginning, I am the head and the owner and head of the Scavengers Network, which is a podcast network that currently has 23 shows on it. I think when I last recorded with you, we had like 10. So we've done a lot of growth in this past year. Really excited about 2020 because we have so many fun things going on there. So you can find us on Twitter at scavengersnet or scavengersnetwork.com. And you can follow me personally at Colin, COLINM, as in Matthew, PARKER, and tweet at me all of your favorite things about Mass Effect. I will talk about it any day of the week. I'll gladly, especially, talk about Garrison Grunt. And if you have anything mean to say about Grunt, you can find the door on your own. And I think that covers all of my personal where to find me stuff.
Awesome.
Well,
if you like what you heard here, you can follow us on social media. We're at ReignitePod on Twitter, Tumblr, and Instagram, Facebook.com/ReignitePod, or you can send us an email at reignitepod@gmail.com. You can rate, review, and subscribe on your favorite podcatcher, and that helps us get seen so other people can find us.
We're also members of the Certain Point of View Network. Visit certainpov.com to find more nerdy podcasts, each with a unique point of view. You can also find a permanent invite link to our Discord server, and you can join in the conversation and on a more granular level, as we never shut up about all the things we love.
We also do some other stuff. I, for example, do a podcast called Circle of Friendship, which is at COFPod on Twitter. It's a podcast about the Circle of Magic series by Tamara Pierce, where we discuss friendship, Threadcraft, and Briar Moss. I also do a podcast called The Rob Thomas, no, not that one, Robcast, where we talk about the works of Rob Thomas. No, not that one. Find that at Not That Robcast on Twitter.
I've been doing a ton of streaming. I try and do it at least twice weekly. I'm currently playing through the newest Pokemon. Pokemon Sword is the version I have, though it is #Sword Shield. I am having fun playing that game. I'm having more fun playing this version of Pokemon than like the last 2 generations combined, so I'm excited about that. You can find it twitch.tv/DJ_Stormageddon. Or literally the URL in any of my social media. We'll probably have that link as well.
Hey, sorry, real quick, before you do your last thank you, as you were going through that, I received a message. So I would like to do one quick personal plug because someone did not believe that I was recording a podcast right now, and that's why I couldn't say anything. So to Jordan Reed, I have to say the word scrimp so that he knows that I'm not lying. Scrimp. There is your code word. And someone there, that's also probably someone's, sleeper cell code word. So also keep an eye out for that. All right. Sorry.
Look what you did, Jordan.
Well done.
We'd like to thank Christina Red Spinks for our It's Okay to Be a Marshmallow t-shirt on Redbubble featuring our favorite marshmallow, Kaden Nolenko. I'm wearing the shirt right now. You can find more of their work at Chaos Does Art on Instagram, and we'd like to thank David Boyle for designing our logo, which you can also get on a shirt through Redbubble, hint, hint, wink, wink, do the thing, and Dan Bull for letting us use the Mass Effect rap for our theme music. I'm MJ.
And I'm Matt, a.k.a. Stormageddon.
And I'm Colin Parker. We should go.
You're listening to Reignite. I'm Commander Shepard, and this is my favorite podcast on the Citadel.